Hello and welcome to a Piano Pandemictivites video. Well, it's still going on. There's no concerts, there's no gatherings, there's no nothing, so maybe some sad music today. And I've chosen the Sarabande from the Bach French Suite in B minor, just because it's beautiful and it's great, but also maybe to give us an opportunity to talk about ties and tone production at the piano. Now, you know, the interesting thing about playing the piano is that you have control over how much sound you get on an individual note, unlike the organ or the harpsichord. And so this question of ties, we have a little bit more we can do. On the harpsichord, if you have a very long tie, let's say there's one here, and that's quite a long time for that tenor line to hold and to be heard across the next bar line. But even more so, this one, this E, which supposedly, you know, we play it there and then it holds all this time, and then finally there, theoretically, you know, on that downbeat, we still hear a little piece of that E. Almost impossible on instrument like harpsichord or clavichord. On organ, it's effortless. On piano, it's somewhere in between. So we're going to look at what's possible and what's reasonable. Anyway, let's just play a little bit to start today. Put in the ornamentation there, just doing a little sight reading. So this is extremely lyrical and has these glorious phrases that just launch upward and soar downward. A lot of, you know, real strong feeling. The thing is about the ties that because the piano can do them, that more or less constitutes an obligation that we must do them. You know, there's this funny phenomenon. When we listen to music, we don't expect things of instruments that can't do those things. For example, one time I heard a very good marimba player, and she did a transcription of the Bach chaconne, and it was really great. And the marimba doesn't have anywhere near the tonal palette that the violin has, for which this piece was written. It just can't do all these things. It can do some other cool things, you know, but it doesn't have a very long ring. You know, you play the whatever you call that, the piece of wood, and it goes clunk, and it fades out. And what was interesting to me was that we didn't miss what the marimba couldn't do. We were just very interested in what it could do, because now the music's going to be about that. So because the piano can sustain, we more or less have to, or else the listener hears the lack of sustain, and that becomes a deficit in our playing. It's like if you can cook well and you don't, everybody blames you. If you can't cook well and you don't, nobody really notices. So this first B, I want to hear sound on the second half of the tie. I want it to be a sensation, an aural sensation of sound. I don't want to just say, hey, I saw your finger there on that B, that was cool. No, that's not how music works. Music is sound. So I'm going to make a crescendo toward that. And then I'm going to play this very quietly so it doesn't distract from that. I'm also going to give it a little bit of extra time. And that draws your attention to it, like, oh, something's important here. And there's one other very, very sneaky thing that we can do, and that is to hang on to the B in the thumb. No, this isn't in the score. No, your teacher didn't tell you this. And if you do that, you'll just get a little reinforcement of that note in this other octave. It's sort of an orchestral thing where, you know, flutes and piccolos play in octaves, cellos and basses play in octaves to reinforce, you know. It recognizes that this isn't a lot of sound, so. And I don't know if that picks up on video very well, but, you know. It's very, very clear here in the room. So I do little things like that all the time because they're practical. They're practical. They make it sound good. Of course it's not on the score. You know, they play different kinds of instruments. And he was busy. He had to go milk the cows, and he had to go and play at church, and he had to go to a meeting of awful town council aristocrats. He was busy. He didn't have time to help you with this. So anyway, that's a nice little sneaky thing there. Now, in order to show that this B is important, it has to be stronger and the A sharp has to be weaker. And that means if you're going to do the ornament has to be very discreet and quiet, right? Let me try that again. That one too, same thing. Darn it. So a little practice on those, which I have not done. Also, if you want to keep an ornament really quiet, don't pedal through it, because that will accumulate the sound from both notes, and it will just make a lot of racket. So you can get this very clean, precise sound if you do it without pedaling. Now, I don't have an answer for this problem right here. Even if you do play an ornament on that, it won't make it last much longer. And it's not like, you know, I don't know, it's not written as a long ornament anyway. I suppose you could put a long trill on it to try to fake that. You could try to play it really loud and hope it lasts. Why would Bach do this, since on many of the instruments, especially clavichord and harpsichord, it would actually not be audible? And the answer is that they wrote the same way for everything. There was kind of one style, and whether they're doing keyboard music or writing lines for violins in a cantata or Brandenburg concerto, whatever he was doing, there's more or less the same way that lines are written, and they don't actually pay that much attention to the individual instrument, because so much of it was just taken from one set of instruments to another, because they're busy, they're working. And they didn't have time to, write it out in this beautiful kind of Chopin thing when it's on the piano, and to write it out in this kind of other Paganini thing when it's on the violin. Everything was just done more or less the same way. So these ties was just part of the language of music, and they didn't really accommodate it that much to the individual instrument. So that's why it's there, because you would write it the same way on the harpsichord that you would write it for voices. And you didn't really mind if it couldn't be heard, because, well, God could hear it. That's kind of the attitude. Anyhow, there may not be a great solution there. Even on a wonderful piano, I don't know. I could hear some in the room. I sort of sped up, to get through that measure quicker and not waste as much of my sound. I cheated. Maybe on a great piano in a great hall, it's possible. But I think that's one of the, one of the things that might not be practical. This next measure is extremely interesting. We have these bizarre little seconds right there. And let me just set it up. That's just gorgeous. What's actually going on here? This is a very artful use of what is called the descending 7/6 motion that was taught to every musician. Good musicians knew it, bad musicians knew it, mediocre musicians knew it, because it was part of kindergarten when you learn music. And what's going on is descending 7/6 works over a bass line, a descending bass line by step, and there it is. And what you have, you start with an interval of a fifth here, and the fifth, in many cases, this is not the only way to do it, but it's a common way, the fifth will expand to a sixth. So there's that G, so now you have a sixth between those. And now the bass drops, so the interval there is a seventh. Sevenths are dissonant, so that seventh must resolve there to the F sharp to the sixth. So now we have a sixth between these, and then the bass drops, that creates a seventh, and then that drops, creating a sixth, and this drops, creating a seventh, and there's your sixth, there's a seventh, there's a sixth, there's a seventh, there's a sixth, and now the bass goes the other way and the motion is over. So that's a lot of 7/6, 7/6, 7/6, 7/6. Now what's supposed to happen, and here comes the artsy part, okay? I'm going to erase some junk so you can see. What's supposed to happen with the other part, the third part, is it is supposed to move in tenths with the bass. So here, this bass line starting there, going all the way to there, is supposed to have tenths with it. Well, what's a tenth above B? D. So that is the actual note. And then C sharp, and then B, and then A, and then G. Okay? So let's hear those together. Okay? Now let's put the other voice in, the 5/6 voice, and we get this. And the alto rises, and so that's the sound of a 7/6. It can be done many other ways, but this is kind of a textbook way to do it. So what's all this other stuff, all these other 16th notes wrapped in circles around our important note? These let's just hear the bass and that together. It's supposed to be. Okay, and what we actually have is. So it's weaving its way through, and it's hitting all the important notes that are marked here, but then it's making this lovely wandering melody in between them. This phenomenon is called diminution. Diminution is decorating. You take the important structural notes that make the harmony work, the ones I've marked, and then you sort of weave in between them. And one, it makes it sound cool and beautiful and excellent and bodacious. And two, it hides the fact that the harmonic thing is kind of straight off the shelf, that there's nothing new under the sun, and what's great and interesting about music is not starting from scratch, but handling existing stuff with wonderful craft and artisanship. So let's hear this whole thing with the previous measure from the previous line. Sorry, I played the rhythm wrong. So there's a lovely little bass motion of descending 7/6 with diminution, and That's why it sounds so good. It's an old, tried and true harmonic motion known as a bass motion. Okay. All right. So anyway, I think my battery's gonna run out, and I might just stop with that for today. There's also a storm coming, and I need to get home. So why not take a little look at this, read through it, pay very close attention to the ties and the phrase shape, and see if you can just come up with something beautiful to play and to enjoy. Thanks a lot for watching. See you later. Be safe, be well, take care of each other, be kind. Ciao.